So we're going to talk today about the idea of maximizing your investment in your technology and in the technology that you're building. Obviously, the idea is that's going to be Litify, might be other integrations, whatever it is, and how to 10x that investment, right? So just a little bit to introduce ourselves. My name's David Schleider, one of the partners at Schulman & Hill. I've been there for a little over 5 years now. After finishing law school, actually joined a tech startup that failed miserably, learned everything not to do involved with technology, and then started my actual legal career practicing as a workers' compensation attorney for Alex Schulman and J.J. Hill. Did that for 3-4 years, and as we made our transition into Litify, really started to function more in an operations role. So, kind of dealing across the law firm, all of our underlying processes, people management, things along those lines. A little bit of a hybrid role, so I did a little bit of it all.
My name is Dennis Allen. Some of you may know who I am. I actually started with Schulman & Hill at the beginning of May this year. Formerly of Litify, I've worked on some of the implementations, some of the firms that are in this room. And prior to that, spent time in operations and product working at Morgan & Morgan. So I have a pretty good background of how law firms scale and how important it is to have technology being the forefront of your investment in time and money. And my job title is bougie, it's VP of product. But I mostly handle a lot of the admin duties here at the firm.
Yep. So just a little bit about our firm, Schulman & Hill, New York's premier injury law firm. We started originally as a workers' compensation firm about 9 years ago. A little over 5 years ago, the partners realized we're sending out all these great personal injury cases. Let's just start our own practice and we'll handle it ourselves. So that has been a major build in and of itself. Probably part of the main reason we switched over to Litify. Workers' comp in New York is very niche. Personal injury has a little more application outside of that. And then recently, about a year, not even a year ago, we actually started a civil rights practice as well. Had a partner come on board with a pretty established practice. So that's been fun integrating him into our practice. We also do Social Security disability more as a service to clients. I wouldn't say it's necessarily one of our main practice areas, but it is sprinkled in there. So again, when I joined the firm, it was a smaller office outside, just in downtown Brooklyn. Since then, we're up to 5 offices. We have our main headquarters in Manhattan, still have our presence in Brooklyn, have opened up in the Bronx, Queens, Long Island, so we're really trying to expand in the New York market. We're up to 23 attorneys and 72 employees across all those areas. A lot of growth that we'll get into in a little bit. So we're looking at technology as an investment, right? This is not an expense that we're carrying. It's something that we're investing in, and as a result of that, we expect returns, right? We know what the costs are. The easy one is money. We know that if you're talking about any sort of software, there's going to be a subscription cost, implementation costs, anything along those lines, but it goes beyond just that as well. Maybe you're considering a new feature that you need to hire a developer for. Maybe you're looking at hiring someone internally like we did. There's obviously going to be a monetary cost associated with that. But the bigger investment that you're making in technology, as far as I see it, is your time. And you can't buy more time. So we have a limited resource, and we have to know where are we putting our time into this build out, into this feature, how long is it going to take to build, who's going to be involved, what is that going to look like for their workload? Do they have to come get pulled off of what they're doing, or is it something they can do while they also manage their cases, do whatever it is? So to me, that's the biggest investment that you're making, is the time that you're putting into it, and I also think that's going to help you yield your greatest returns. So when we look at our technology investment and we want to say, what have we gotten from it? We're really looking, as far as I see it, at 2 categories of things, right? We want to try and create more efficient processes that are going to leverage dynamic data in the system. That's going to be your time savers, the things that we're going to do to save everyone time that's using the system. And then we're going to also want to gain additional insight to guide decision making. When you're making a decision, a business decision, you want data to back it up, or to at least push you in the right direction, and that's something that you're going to get. Ultimately, those 2 things together are going to allow you to handle more cases in less time, sign up more cases, handle more cases, do it in less time, spend less time on each task, get the case to a resolution faster, and get a better result for the clients, which inevitably is going to be a better result for the law firm. So just to go over our kind of timeline of our investment in Litify, and we really do look at it as an investment. So we went live November of 2020. Leading up to that was very time intensive in terms of probably a few months, maybe even a little more than that, up to our go live, it was my full-time job. So, I really give credit to Alex and JJ, Alex Schulman and JJ Hill, to say, I'm going to court, I'm being paid as an attorney, but they're going to take me fully off of that and say, your job is to help with our Litify build out. That was a major investment we had to make, and probably not an easy decision to do that. Once we did go live, we kind of continued out our development with LSAP. I don't know if there's any other LSAP customers, but definitely something we'd recommend speaking with them about. It definitely helped us push a couple of those loose ends that we had at implementation and get them into a more functional state. And we've also engaged with a couple of consultants and developers along the line. But really what it came down to is we needed that person in-house. We needed that internal product owner, which is where in May of 2022, we had the opportunity to bring Dennis on board. And that's exactly what we did. And I think it's easily been the most consequential hire we've made since going live on Litify, to have that person in-house that just owns every aspect of the tech.
Right, and thank you for kind of cutting over to me, because really one of the things that I really want to talk about is really how we're kind of guiding our platform for the future, and a lot of that is really just based on organizing what you find is a priority at the current time, and sometimes that changes on a weekly basis. Law firms are very agile and need to be very agile. You may acquire another firm and you need to have a very complex calculation on participation fees as that acquisition relates to the acquisition. So that's just kind of an example from our use case. But we kind of built what we could call a roadmap. Does anybody here actually have a roadmap at their law firm? All right, so a couple of hands. It's just a good way to kind of gauge what's the priority, current priority, and what was the priority. So you don't lose sight of things, right? Things that you thought were important at one point that never really got to, but eventually comes back up. That's something you either want to build or you want to enhance on. I would say probably one of the main things from that I can kind of give color on I kind of have a unique background in this space, Salesforce law firms. I've kind of been at the forefront of building foundation of really what this technology is doing for law firms and seeing it in practice throughout my time. I would say that one of the things that really kind of when you're building a feature, what's really going to be something that really finds a feature so the feature is actually important to you is if it's something that you can measure, and also if it's something that's going to make somebody's job easier to do. If it's not doing one of those things or accomplishing one of those things, it's probably not that important. And that's really just something to take away. It has to be something that's actually going to improve somebody's time, optimize something that they're doing that's repetitive, or it's got to be something that's going to actually achieve a strategic goal for the firm.
And on that note, we want to give a little bit of an example of each one of those things and how, what we've been able to accomplish since we started with Litify, with Dennis as well. So, when we talk about processes and, we want to use the data in a smart way and have the data kind of speak to each other. The feature that came to mind for us was our hearing note entry for workers' comp attorneys. Now, I understand everyone here is probably not a New York workers' comp attorney. I'm not going to get too much into the details of everything we need, but the idea is that, like most attorneys, you go to court, you make some sort of appearance, come back to the office, or maybe it's virtual, and then you have to input your notes. You have to update the system in some way. So going back to our Needles days, this was essentially just write out a long, summary and stick it in the electronic file, and people will go look at it later. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, right? A very inefficient process. You then, if you had any follow-up work, okay, based on what happened in court, we need to now send tasks to the paralegals. We need to send tasks to the medical records coordinator, whatever it might be. They then have to go in and manually do that. They have to leave their hearing note. They have to go into the matter, or depending on what system you're on, the case itself, and then send all that stuff out manually. And then lastly, there's no real building reference. It's all just kind of static data sitting in a note, in a summary, and every attorney does it a little differently. Some are going to put all their hearing notes at the top, and then the more important stuff at the bottom. It's just going to be a little bit disjointed from hearing note to hearing note. So, we wanted to reevaluate that entire process, and we did spend a lot of time on this one. It had some technical challenges that we'll kind of walk through. But ultimately, what we're looking for is what did we get for that? That time, that 6 weeks, whatever it was that we put in, and workshopping with the attorneys and the paralegals that are kind of affected by this as well.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time working on this thing.
Personally, so what did we get for that? And I don't think we revolutionized anything, but for every hearing note, attorneys say that, it probably saves a couple minutes, maybe 3-4 minutes, depending on the complexity of what they were doing and how much follow-up work was needed. So that's not so much, right? A couple minutes. But when you think each attorney is going to handle between 100 and 120 hearings a month, if you extrapolate that out, that might be anywhere from 5 to 8 hours a month per attorney. That's a workday. I mean, that's a lot of time that we're able to save. And that's just one of the benefits of this process. We're also going to use the data in a way that we weren't previously using. So again, without getting too in the weeds here, I do want to just kind of highlight what we're looking at here. So this is a fake case for Larry David. This is what our workers' comp hearing record is going to look like. And we're designing a process that we want to be straightforward. So the attorney comes into the hearing record. There's a button just for them, add hearing note. We don't want to overcomplicate it here. You're here to add your hearing note, hit the button that says add hearing note. So when they do that, what this is going to do is it's going to launch one flow, one screen flow that they're going to go through. They're never going to leave it, and everything that they need to do is going to get done right here. So this is going to be their first page, and what they're doing here, we've kind of analyzed, and again, I know there's not many workers' comp attorneys here, but there's 5 or 6 specific data points on every case that we need to know. We need to know which body parts have been injured and the status of those body parts. We need to know what the client's wages are so that we can formalize those awards, get him paid for any time he's missed from work, things like that. We need to know what the actual award periods are, right? What times has he been in work and what times has he been out? For the times he's out, what rate is he getting paid? And if there's any continuing award after a hearing, what is that amount? So rather than just having someone write all that out, they're managing the actual data points here at this kind of initial part of the hearing. And what's great is that this is going to kind of roll over to the next hearing. So when the attorney comes in at the next hearing, he's going to have this same information, and he's going to know, okay, have we made any changes? Is this being this is now being updated on a frequently rather than just everyone kind of writing whatever it is that they want and kind of starting from scratch. The next, and this is probably my favorite part, is the follow-up task. So rather than finishing your hearing note, going back into the matter, figuring out who's the paralegal, all right, what do I send this task to them? Is this for the attorney? It takes all of this out of that.
Right.
So,
and just for this part here, so this is something that's happening on a related record. So we're driving task creation from a hearing. Now, I had no idea. This is actually something that's part of every Litify org has this feature to do this. Apparently, as a former Litify employee, I didn't even know that this thing existed until I started working for them, and I was like, I didn't get the memo on that. That would have been super helpful for like 5 of my projects along the way. But what this feature is something that most of you have access to. You just need to, maybe either work with your LSAP consultant to get something like this stood up. So it isn't something that we overly, built something custom. This is actually something you can accomplish on your own.
And it's great. I mean, rather than having to figure out and manually give out a task, you just select a drop down. So we said, what are the, I worked with the attorneys, what are the 8 to 10 most frequent things that you have to task out? Great, there's a drop down. What's the deadline? What's the task? And that's going to base the timing of the due date of the task. It's going to already know, based on this task, this goes to this person on the matter team. So all that is done with just clicking a drop down. So it does save a good amount of time there. And it also it makes it easier for people not to forget to do it, right? It's very easy to have 18 hearing notes you have to put in and then just kind of skip ahead and not do that next piece of work. And similarly, you go to court, there might be some direction for depositions. So what we're going to do from this same flow is we're going to now create a new object. We're now going to create our deposition direction that is going to trigger an entire new workflow for our calendar clerk and our depot coordinators. And they're going to have all the information that they need right here. What are the issues? Who are we doing the depots with? When does it need to be done by?
Right. In this all this section here, like that you're seeing here, deposition direction, deposition deadline, care counsel issues, like all this stuff that's showing here is all conditionally shown from that toggle. So it's probably something we probably could have like demoed with the actual computer, just to kind of give you a little bit more of a real-time feel for it. But really, like the goal here is that we're driving data collection where it doesn't exactly feel like data entry. It's just them kind of like based on the outcomes of the hearing, we know what information needs to be collected, and that's really kind of the goal. Is it's just less thinking and just kind of let's think about what needs to be recorded and just recording the stuff that's in front of you.
And just going through one kind of seamless flow, collecting that information, and then the system just does the rest of the work. It creates all the tasks, it creates all the follow-ups for you. So, and again, one of my favorite parts, even though it's pretty minor, is like this is then the outcome is we get a completely standardized hearing note, right? And they didn't write this. No one wrote this. The system generates this summary by itself. It bolds things. It uses capitalization. It would drive me crazy at any time like something's not capitalized right. And it just does everything for it. It keeps it nice and organized. And the most important part is this now lives on the matter. So what the attorney did at that hearing, we now have a summary of the case, what's established, what sites are we still working on being established?
Right.
What's the wage?
And some of these are from like a different hearing record, right? So we're building like a disposition here over
building
time.
as we go. So the right shoulder hasn't been established yet. At the next hearing, once it is, it's going to appear under ANCR. It stands for, or synonymous with being established in the case. So this is very helpful when an upset client calls and the paralegal wants to pass it to me. They give me the client's name, and that's pretty much it. And I go in, and I have the entire case summary right here. This is something that's been building. I trust it because I trust my attorneys to put their hearing notes in correctly. This isn't something a lower-level admin did. So it kind of just saves time in a lot of little ways as we go. Anything else from a technical end that you wanted to go over?
Really, the coolest thing, I think, even you could just go back to this kind of showing them the injuries. So what happens here, if you go back to right here. So you see how there's injuries here? These are the injuries that are actually on the case. The attorney that come in there, enter their note, they're going to update the status if something was established or if something was moved to PFME. This dynamically updates and pulls into the note based on the changes that they make. So if you went over to here, you're going to see that ANCR was established your right shoulder, right? So that's just to pull into the note. All they have to do is just change the injuries. However, over time, as certain changes are made within certain hearings, that's all going to roll up to the matter in a separate. So there's just the changes in the injuries themselves from this record. What you're doing is you're avoiding a lot of bouncing back and forth between tabs and this and that. They got to remember to update this thing. We're just controlling everything within one interface, and they're done doing their job, right? And again, we went back and saved us about 5 to 8 hours per attorney per month.
Per month. So over, as time goes on, those savings add up. So the other way we look at, what do we want out of our technology, the more we're putting in, is we want insight to make decisions. And, the example I'm going to use is for our firm at the inception, at least ever since I've been there, and from what I hear, this is always how it was, is we were very driven by in-person intake. So back in our Brooklyn office, it would be like a zoo. It would be 10 clients in and out every other day, whatever it is, 5 to 10 clients. We barely did e-signs. It was just not something that we did it a little bit when we needed to. We really wanted that face-to-face. And that was something that always our paralegals ran. We didn't have an intake department. That wasn't something we really looked at. It was, all right, we have personal injury cases. Personal injury paralegals are going to handle those. The workers' comp cases, the workers' comp paralegals will handle those. And that's very disruptive for them. They're trying to service their clients, get their job done, get through their tasks, and then, oh, hey, here's a new client. They just walked in. We have no idea they were going to be here, no schedule whatsoever, just a little bit of madness. So we went live on Litify, and we wanted to use that information that we were collecting for a year to make a decision. And so we analyzed some of the trends in our client sign up. Obviously, COVID changed a ton of this. Everything went, very quickly flipped into a more e-sign format. But still, we wanted to understand before we made an actual decision. And then getting back, we'll talk a little bit about this as well. We kind of built some automation to create one intake into 2 different matters. So we do a lot of workers' comp and personal injury. It's one accident. So we look at that as one intake, and that is then going to leverage out. That's going to create 2 different matters. It's going to pull the important information for each case onto its distinct matter. That's something still a work in progress, so we're not ready to fully show it off yet. But just one of the things that we looked at as, all right, we need to spend time here and again, see what we'll get from that.
Show hands, how many people here have an intake department at their firm? So pretty much everybody here.
So yeah, we were the,
yeah,
we were the exception.
Either or, where you're going to show you guys, it's going to be like, oh, duh.
Yeah,
This is why we all have one, right?
For us, this was like, this was a big decision and everyone's happy for it. And as a result, again, what are the returns that we got on that? We've seen a 20% increase in our conversion rate year over year compared to 2021 to 2022.
And these are cases that we wanted. So these aren't cases that are just like any leads, junk leads or whatever.
Qualified intakes.
Yeah, these are qualified intakes.
And so again, this was our decision-making process, right? We see a sharp increase at the end of the year in our, this is actually cases, this is not intakes. This doesn't include leads we turn down. This is a very sharp increase in cases towards the end of last year. The staff were going crazy. We were signing up a ton of cases, and it was just very disruptive. Now, let's be honest, this itself isn't that, interesting of a chart, right? Any system can run how many cases did you sign up. But what we were able to do is dig a lot deeper into that information and break it down by the different data points we're collecting. So we're able to see what our e-sign percentages are by practice area, and then really break it down by office. So we had this thinking of in-office intakes. We have these 5 offices. Let's push clients to those those service centers and get them in person to sign everything up. But then what we realized is we're really doing everything out of Manhattan anyway. That's our biggest office. It's got our most staff, so we're really doing everything here. Let's focus the intake operation in Manhattan. Let's make a shift and really try and prioritize e-signs over in-person intakes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have the kind of satellite offices for those in-person intakes that want to come see us, live in an outer borough, aren't able to make it into Manhattan. So we kind of pivoted, made that decision. It was a very important one for us to make. And what we've seen as the results are we're now doing approximately 77% of our intakes via e-sign. And if you look towards the end of this chart, this is by quarter, the first half being 2021, and then into 2022. We're at a pretty stark difference in terms of our e-signs compared to where we were this time last year, just in terms of the breakdown. And what it turns out is doing an e-sign is a lot faster than doing an intake in person. And our average time to convert cases is down about 17%. So, in 2021 compared to 2022. Now, this took a lot of work in looking at the intake process. It didn't exist. It was someone comes in, just figure it out, let's get them in the seat, whoever's available. So we really broke down the process. We separated out leads from sign-ups. The process of actually getting someone on the phone, following up with your leads is entirely different than signing up the case itself. So really try and break it down into each discrete part and then implement it. And again, the return we've seen just very immediate. So we started this at the very beginning of this year, and within 1 month, we already start to see the increases start to
So
come
the light
in.
blue is going to be 21, and 22 is the dark blue. So literally, once they launched intakes, what was it?
It was really the end of last year, early this year. We had our first hire. Yeah.
Like you can literally, it goes whoop, like 20%, right off the top.
So a very measurable benefit that we've gotten, to measure against the time that we put in, which also was significant. But again, this is something that we now have and will continue to kind of iterate on and improve on year over year. So again, just some of the things you want to look for when you're thinking of features. And again, those are just 2 examples. We probably have 15 different processes that we kind of did a wholesale reevaluation of in terms of, what every discrete part, who does this, what do they have to press, what's the next follow-up. But really the things that you want to see, like we said, we want to sign up more cases, and we want to handle them in less time, and we want to get better results for the clients. So since kind of launching all these things, we've seen our length of case reduce 23% from around 795 days on average per case in 2021 on cases that closed to 2022, we're down to 611. So our intakes don't stop, the new cases don't stop, so we got to get them out as quickly as possible in a way as beneficial to the client as possible.